Think the biggest hurdle to marriage is your future mother-in-law? Think again. It's actually the government, and it has some opinions. We're talking about a silent, bizarre partner in every union, armed with laws so strange they defy all logic. Today, we're exposing the most baffling, absurd, and downright hilarious marriage regulations ever put to paper. These are the rules that prove romance and bureaucracy make the absolute worst possible bedfellows, creating legal chaos where there should be wedded bliss. 1. In France, death is not considered a deal-breaker for marriage. Seriously, the practice is called necrogamy, and you can petition the President of France for permission to marry your deceased partner. As long as you can prove you intended to tie the knot before they, checked out, you can have your wedding. It's a tradition that started to honor fallen soldiers, but it's still on the books today. It adds a whole new, slightly morbid dimension to the phrase, "till death do us part." 2. Ever think about proposing as a joke? Don't do it in South Carolina. If you're over 16 and propose to a woman deceitfully, without any intention of following through, you can be charged with a misdemeanor. This falls under a section of the law wonderfully titled Offenses Against Morality and Decency. The state is basically putting a legal smackdown on romantic fraud. It's a government-enforced no backsize on popping the question, so you'd better be sure before you get on one knee. 3. In Utah, marrying your first cousin is totally fine, provided you've waited long enough for it to not really matter. The law allows first cousins to wed only if both parties are 65 or older. The only other exception is if they're both over 55 and a court determines one of them is infertile. It's the government's way of looking at your family tree and saying, after 65, the genetic warranty has pretty much expired. Go for it. 4. Kentucky believes in second chances and third chances. But it draws a very firm legal line at a fourth. It is explicitly illegal in the state to remarry the same person for a fourth time. You can marry and divorce the same individual 3 times over, no problem. But on that fourth attempt, the clerk has to deny you. The state is essentially your friend who, after watching you get back with your toxic ex for the 3rd time, finally confiscates your car keys and says, "No, we're not doing this again." 5. Can you imagine having your wedding plans vetoed by a literal monarch? In the tiny, wealthy nation of Monaco, citizens need the prince's approval to marry. It's not just a formality. Notice of your intent to marry is posted publicly for 10 days. During that window, the prince's office can formally object and put a stop to the whole thing. It means the biggest threat to your wedding isn't a jealous ex, but a sovereign ruler who just wasn't feeling your union. 6. The ultimate long-distance relationship? Getting married in Montana, where neither of you even has to be in the state. Welcome to the double proxy marriage, the only one of its kind in the US. You and your partner could be on different sides of the world, while 2 complete strangers stand in for you in a Montana courthouse and legally bind you for life. It's the perfect marriage solution for the pathologically busy, the incredibly shy, or maybe international spies who can't risk being in the same room. 7. In Greece, the calendar can be your biggest romantic enemy. There's a powerful and widely observed superstition that getting married during a leap year is a recipe for disaster, all but guaranteeing a divorce. While it's not an official law, the cultural pressure is so immense that wedding venues and planners see a massive drop in business every 4 years. Think about that. Your lifelong commitment could be cursed from the start, all because of an extra day in February. 8. While some places have weird rules for getting married, 2 places make it almost impossible to get out of one. The Philippines and Vatican City are the only sovereign states on Earth where divorce is illegal. In the Philippines, your only hope is a lengthy, expensive, and often traumatic annulment process, where you must legally prove the marriage was invalid from the very beginning. For millions, the phrase, "till death do us part," isn't a romantic vow. It's an ironclad legal sentence. 9. Forget a ring. In one English town, the must-have wedding accessory is a whaler's harpoon. according to a fiercely guarded tradition in Hartlepool, to be considered a true local, a Hartlepudlian, one must be married over the harpoon. While you won't find this in any official legal text, it's a piece of local identity so strong that it carries the weight of law. It's a beautiful testament to local culture, and also a logistical nightmare for wedding planners. 10. In Saudi Arabia, marrying a foreigner isn't a matter of love. It's a matter of passing a government audit. A Saudi man who wants to marry a non-Saudi woman needs official state permission, and the checklist is staggering. He must be between 40 and 65 years old. If divorced, he must wait at least 2 years. He also has to submit a dossier of documents, including one from his local mayor certifying he doesn't have any disqualifying hereditary diseases. Romance has never been so bureaucratic. 11. In Japan, if you're a woman who gets divorced, the law forces you to take a 100-day cooling-off period before you can remarry. A man, on the other hand, he's free to walk out of the courthouse and into another chapel that same afternoon. This law isn't about giving women time to think it over. It's an archaic rule from the 19th century, designed to avoid paternity disputes in a pre-DNA world. It's a law that punishes women for a problem that modern science solved decades ago. 12. Ever gotten married on a dare? If you did it in Delaware, the state has your back. Getting married as a jest or a dare is one of the official grounds for an annulment. There's no waiting period, no complicated divorce proceedings. You just have to prove to a judge that the entire sacred union was a joke that went way too far. It's a legal escape hatch for life's most idiotic decisions. 13. Dreaming of a picturesque wedding on a beach or a mountaintop? Don't even think about it in England or Wales. For a marriage to be legally binding there, it must take place inside a fixed structure with a solid, permanent roof. That's why you see all those weddings happening in gazebos. It's a legal workaround. This law effectively bans open-air ceremonies, making one of the world's most romantic countries surprisingly inflexible. Meanwhile, in Las Vegas, you can get married in a drive-thru. 14. New York State has a very particular and frankly unsettling definition of incest. Marrying your niece or nephew is, of course, illegal. However, the law specifies that this only applies if you are the full sibling of their parent. If you're only a half-sibling to their parent, then legally, it's not considered incest, and you're good to go. It's a bizarre genetic loophole that implies the state is fine with just a little bit of incest, as long as you don't go all the way. 15. Forgetting your spouse's birthday can have serious consequences in your home. In the island nation of Samoa, it can have serious consequences with the law. An old but reportedly still valid law makes it illegal for a husband to forget his wife's birthday. While it's unlikely that police are actively arresting forgetful husbands, the sheer fact that a government once tried to legislate basic attentiveness is hilarious. It's the world's only legally enforceable honey-do list. 16. Some laws are absurd because of their content. Others are absurd because of how they're written. Welcome to Mississippi's law against polygamy, which reads less like a legal statute and more like a furious, rambling sermon. It describes cohabiting with a second partner as adultery and fornication, and goes on a long-winded tangent about how it's a disgusting offense to public decency. It's not just a law, it's a dramatic monologue. 17. Here's a fun question. Are you married? You might think you know the answer, but if you live in Kansas, you could be wrong. Kansas is one of the few states that still fully recognizes common law marriage, and the requirements are hilariously vague. You just have to mutually hold yourselves out to the public as being married. What does that mean? Does a joint Costco membership count? Changing your Facebook status? You could accidentally become legally bound for life without ever signing a single document. 18. In most of the United States, if your spouse cheats on you, your legal fight is with them. But in a handful of states, including North Carolina and Utah, you can sue the person they cheated with for cash. It's a law called alienation of affection, and it allows you to take your spouse's lover to court for stealing their affection and ruining your marriage. Can you imagine having to put a dollar amount on your broken heart? Juries have awarded 19. If you're a man in Truro, Massachusetts, an old law states that before you can get hitched, you must first prove your worth as a provider. How? By going on a hunt. But you're not hunting a mighty buck or a bear. To prove your manhood, you must successfully hunt and kill either 6 blackbirds or 3 crows. It's a bizarre, antiquated ritual that turns the sacred act of matrimony into a bizarre fetch quest for vermin. 20. Let's travel back to 1770s England, where a woman's makeup bag was considered a potential arsenal of witchcraft. A law was passed that stated any woman who used scents, paints, cosmetic washes, artificial teeth, false hair, or high-heeled shoes to seduce a man into marriage was in deep trouble. The marriage could be annulled, and she could be tried under the laws of witchcraft. It was the original catfishing scandal, only instead of getting blocked online, you could get burned at the stake. 21. The city of Florence, Italy, home to some of the world's greatest art, is also home to one of its weirdest public health laws for couples. It's technically illegal for anyone with a contagious disease to enter the city. So, if you and your spouse catch a simple cold while on your Italian honeymoon, you could theoretically be barred from re-entering Florence after a day trip. It's an ancient quarantine rule that was never taken off the books, turning the common sniffles into a potential immigration crisis. 22. In the United Arab Emirates, holding your spouse's hand in public can be a tricky business. While it's generally acceptable for married couples, any public display of affection that's deemed too passionate, like a kiss, can get you arrested for public indecency. The line is incredibly blurry and often depends on who's watching. What's a sweet gesture in one neighborhood could be a criminal offense in another. It's a real-life game of romantic roulette where the stakes are your freedom. 23. Here's a law that sounds like it was written by a divorce lawyer on commission. In New Mexico, if you're a married couple and you get into a heated argument, a very old and bizarre statute technically forbids you from censoring each other's reading material. Specifically, it was designed to stop feuding spouses from blacking out passages in a shared copy of Romeo and Juliet. Yes, really. It's a law that protects Shakespeare from your domestic drama. 24. In China, getting a divorce isn't as simple as signing some papers. Since 2021, the government has mandated a 30-day cool-down period for any couple filing for divorce. After you submit your application, you have to wait a full month. If at the end of that month you don't show up together to finalize it, the application is automatically canceled. The government is essentially putting your breakup on administrative hold, hoping you'll just give up and stay together out of sheer inconvenience. 25. How old do you have to be to get married? In most places, it's 18 or 16 with parental consent. But in Massachusetts, the law has a shocking loophole. There is technically no minimum age for marriage. A judge can approve a marriage for a child of any age, even a 12-year-old, if they have parental consent and a judge's approval. It's a holdover from an era when such things were disturbingly common, and it remains a terrifyingly legal possibility today. 26. Let's head to the charming state of Louisiana, which operates under a unique legal system derived from French Napoleonic Code. This has led to some oddities, especially in marriage. For a long time, the husband was legally considered the head and master of the household, giving him sole authority to sell the family home without his wife's consent. While this has been reformed, remnants of this patriarchal structure still linger in the state's property laws, creating a modern legal headache. 27. Thinking of a quickie wedding in Las Vegas? Be careful what you wish for. In Nevada, any marriage performed by someone pretending to be a minister or a judge is still legally valid. As long as at least one person in the couple genuinely believed the Elvis impersonator was legally authorized to marry them, the state says, "Congratulations, you're hitched." It's a law that validates marriages based on good faith, even if that faith was placed in a guy in a sequined jumpsuit. 28. In Scotland, if you show up drunk to your own wedding, the whole thing can be called off, and not by your angry bride or groom, but by the registrar. Scottish law gives the officiant the power to refuse to conduct the ceremony if they believe either person is too intoxicated to consent. It makes perfect sense, but can you imagine the sheer embarrassment? Getting denied your own marriage because you had a little too much liquid courage beforehand. 29. In India, a Hindu man who converts to Islam to marry a second wife without divorcing his first can be prosecuted for bigamy. This sounds straightforward, but it addresses a very specific legal loophole people were exploiting. Since Hindu personal law requires monogamy, but Islamic personal law allows up to 4 wives, some men were attempting a religious arbitrage to get around the rules. The Supreme Court of India stepped in and said, "Nice try, but no." 30. Let's end this batch on a truly head-scratching note from the state of Tennessee. It is illegal to marry someone if they are officially declared insane. Okay, that seems reasonable. But the law gets weird. If the sane spouse was unaware of the insanity at the time of the wedding, they can get an annulment. But if they knew their partner was legally insane and married them anyway, the marriage is valid and they're stuck. It's a law that basically says, you knew what you were getting into, so no refunds. 31. In Michigan, a wife technically cannot cut her own hair without her husband's permission. This is one of those classic dusty laws from a bygone era that has never been formally repealed. It stems from Old English common law where a woman's property, including her hair, legally belonged to her husband. While you won't see police raiding hair salons, it's a baffling legal fossil that still exists on the books, a ghostly reminder of a time when a haircut required a marital negotiation. 32. Let's talk about wedding night expectations. In London, a bizarre and ancient ordinance makes it illegal to have sex on a parked motorcycle. The law isn't about marriage specifically, but it certainly puts a damper on any spontaneous, two-wheeled romance. The city has a lot of strange rules, but this one stands out for its sheer, oddly specific visual. You have to wonder what series of events led to the city council saying, "That's it. We have to regulate this." 33. If you're a widow in the city of Sarasota, Florida, you need to be careful about your Sunday afternoon activities. An old law, still technically enforceable, forbids a widow from parachuting on a Sunday. Any other day of the week is fine. Single women, married women, they can all jump out of planes whenever they want. But for widows, Sunday skydiving is off limits. It's a law so strangely specific, it feels like it was written to settle a very personal, very weird grudge. 34. In Vermont, there's a law that once required women to get written permission from their husbands to wear false teeth. Think about that. A woman's dental health, or at least her cosmetic dental choices, was subject to a spousal veto. It's another relic of coverture laws, where a husband had legal control over his wife's body and possessions. Would you want to ask for a permission slip to go to the dentist? It's a hilarious and slightly horrifying piece of legal history. 35. Let's go to Australia, where being a habitual drunkard can get in the way of your marriage. The law allows a marriage to be voided if at the time of the ceremony, one person was so intoxicated they couldn't possibly understand what they were doing. This isn't just for a one-off bender. The law specifically mentions habitual drunkards, implying a long-term problem. It's the legal system's way of protecting you from making a lifelong commitment during a moment of profound, alcohol-fueled idiocy. 36. In Indonesia, the punishment for looking at your spouse with lust can be extreme. Okay, this is a bit of a misinterpretation that went viral, but the kernel of truth is still wild. The country has strict anti-pornography laws that are incredibly broad. They prohibit any writing, sound, image, or other form of communication through any media which has a content of lasciviousness or exploitation. In its most extreme interpretation by conservative groups, this could theoretically include a lustful text to your own spouse. 37. In the state of Washington, there is a law that makes it illegal to marry a pauper. A pauper, in this context, is someone who is dependent on public assistance. The law was designed to prevent people from other states moving to Washington, marrying a resident, and immediately becoming a financial burden on the state's welfare system. It's a cold, calculating piece of legislation that essentially puts a price tag on the right to marry. 38. What's the weirdest reason you've heard for a divorce? In Kuwait, it can be your choice of pet. A conservative interpretation of Islamic law in the country has led to rulings where a wife was granted a divorce because her husband insisted on keeping a dog in the house. In this view, dogs are considered unclean, and their presence made it impossible for the wife to practice her faith at home. It's a case where "it's me or the dog" had actual legal standing. 39. In Wisconsin, your marriage better be based on more than just physical attraction. The state has a law that makes it a crime to marry for a temporary or physical purpose. Now, how on earth would a prosecutor prove this? It seems to be targeting sham marriages, but the wording is so wonderfully vague it sounds like the state is trying to outlaw shallow relationships. It's the government's clumsy attempt at demanding you love your spouse for their personality. 40. Let's end with a head-scratcher from Wichita, Kansas. An old city ordinance states that a man's mistreatment of his mother-in-law cannot be used as legal grounds for his wife to divorce him. Think of the family dinners that inspired this law. Things must have gotten so bad with so many wives citing "he's horrible to my mom" in court that the city fathers had to step in and say, "That's not a good enough reason." It's a law that gives legal protection to sons-in-law who are absolute jerks. 41. In Minnesota, there's a bizarre law that ties your marriage prospects to your breath. An old statute makes it illegal for a man to have sex with his wife if his breath smells of garlic, onions, or sardines. Okay, that's just good advice. But the fact that someone thought it needed to be a law speaks volumes. It's a rare legal code that aims to protect not your rights, but your nostrils, making it possibly the freshest take on romance regulation. 42. Let's talk about a truly terrifying wedding night argument. In the state of Arizona, it's illegal to have a donkey sleeping in your bathtub after 7 p.m. This isn't a marriage law, but imagine the domestic feud that inspired it. "Honey, the donkey's dripping all over the bath mat again." It's a legal fossil from a time when your livestock choices could cause a municipal crisis. A perfect example of household chaos gone legislative. 43. In Iran, a man can enter what's called a temporary marriage, or siheh. It can last as short as an hour or as long as 99 years, all detailed in a formal contract that includes dowry terms. Proponents say it offers a religiously sanctioned path for relationships. Critics argue it's often used as a legal loophole for short-term flings. It's essentially a pay-as-you-go marriage, part sacred institution, part subscription service. 44. If you're getting married in South Africa, you better be clear about your financial plans from the start. The default marital contract in the country is in community of property. This means that from the moment you say "I do," all of your individual assets and debts are merged into one single joint estate. If you want to keep things separate, you have to proactively sign a prenuptial agreement. Otherwise, your spouse's bad credit score instantly becomes your problem. 45. In Somalia, the legal age for marriage is 18, but the law has a massive, unsettling exception. A girl can be married as young as 10 years old if she shows signs of puberty and gives her consent. The concept of a 10-year-old being able to give meaningful, informed consent to a lifelong legal union is deeply problematic, making this one of the most troubling marriage laws in the world. It's a stark reminder that not all marriage laws are funny. Some are genuinely horrifying. 46. Let's lighten the mood with a trip to Hartford, Connecticut, where it's illegal for a husband to kiss his wife on a Sunday. This is a classic blue law, a holdover from puritanical times when affection took a day off. The idea that a simple kiss could once be a criminal act on the Lord's Day feels like the plot of a satire. Imagine needing legal counsel just to smooch after brunch. 47. In Denmark, when married couples name their baby, they have to choose from a government-approved list of about 7,000 names. Want something creative like banana or laser? You'll need permission from both the government and the church. It's a bureaucratic firewall for baby names. A system where your top pick can be legally vetoed by people who've never met your kid. 48. In Japan, there's a law that has caused a huge amount of controversy. Married couples are legally required to share the same last name. Over 96% of the time, it's the woman who gives up her surname. This Meiji-era law is seen by many as a symbol of gender inequality, forcing women to give up a part of their identity upon marriage. While other countries have similar traditions, Japan is one of the only major developed nations where it's a strict legal requirement. 49. In the UK, it is technically an act of treason for a commoner to violate a member of the royal family. The Treason Act of 1351 makes it a capital offense to sleep with the monarch's spouse, their eldest unmarried daughter, or the wife of the heir to the throne. While the death penalty for this has been abolished, the law itself is still active. So if you happen to marry into the royal family, your spouse's fidelity is protected by one of the most severe laws in the nation's history. Okay, we've gone through 49 points of legal madness, and there's just one final spot left. But before we get to number 50, it's time for the final verdict. In our opinion, the award for the most mind-bendingly dumb marriage law on today's list goes to Utah's rule allowing first cousins to marry only after age 65. It's just so specific, so morbidly pragmatic. The government essentially said, "We'll allow this questionable union, but only after you're both too old for it to result in any genetic shenanigans." Do you agree with our verdict? Or did another law deserve this dubious honor? Let us know what you think in the comments. And now, for our final number, 50. And for our final exhibit, the single dumbest marriage law might be the one that tried to outlaw being an annoying spouse. Up until 1972 in New Jersey, and even later in other places, a person could be legally prosecuted as a common scold. This was a real, indictable offense aimed almost exclusively at women who were deemed too argumentative, quarrelsome, or naggy. The state literally gave itself the power to police the tone of your marital disagreements. Can you imagine the government trying to legally define the threshold for nagging? It's the ultimate form of legislative overreach, turning petty household arguments into a matter for the courts. And that wraps up our tour of the world's most nonsensical attempts to legislate love. From marrying the dead to fighting your spouse in a pit, it's clear that when governments try to regulate romance, the results are often more bizarre than the wildest romantic comedy. What's the most ridiculous rule you've ever heard of where you live? Let us know in the discussion below. If you enjoyed this journey into legal absurdity, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration.